Welcome to another episode of What Works For Me, a podcast highlighting best practices in Christian schools. This podcast is produced in partnership with Lutheran Education Association. To discover how LEA supports Christian teachers in schools, visit www.lea.org. My name is Rob Lunak, and I'm the superintendent of Lutheran Neighborhood Schools in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My co-host Mike Sheeman is off this week, but that's okay. I'm sure he's there listening in spirit out there somewhere. Today on this episode, we have Mike Lorenz. Mike is the art teacher at Lutheran South in St. Louis, Missouri. And today we're going to be talking about a pretty unique and fun-sounding art camp that Mike runs. So Mike, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself?
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Mike Lorenz. I have been teaching here at Lutheran High School South for 5 years now. This is my 22nd year altogether teaching Lutheran High School art classes. I taught at Lutheran North for 17 years before I came down here. I'm a proud 1998 graduate of Lutheran South, so I had a chance to come back home, and it's been very cool to teach in the place where I got a chance to learn. I coach football, run our student council. My 3 kids all went to school here. My wife went to school here. That's where we met. So this has kind of been a very central focus of my life, for a long time.
That's really neat to hear. It's always interesting to me when people go back to where they grew up. They teach where they were taught, and that's always a really unique thing. And that's one of those things that I don't want to say is uniquely Lutheran, but you definitely see it a lot more in the Lutheran system than maybe in the public system, and that's pretty neat to see.
Oh, yeah. Between the schools that I've been in and people that I know that are at other places, that winds up being something that you hear over and over again, is the amount of the staff that is alums. So I think you're spot on there.
Yeah, that's always one of the fun things we get to talk about every once in a while. But that's not why we're meeting today. We're going to talk about all the things you do, and you listed a bunch of them. I think when we were talking earlier, you said you like to be busy, and so that's good.
Yes.
And so you're busy enough during the school year, and you said, you know what? I can do stuff during the summer too. So tell me how this art camp started.
I've been doing it a long time. I don't directly remember if it was something that I came to the administrators at Lutheran North about, or if it was something they came to me about. There are summer camps in general, whether it's art or sports or anything, I think are fantastic outreach opportunities. It gives you a chance to get kids in the building who might not otherwise be there. It's a great admissions thing because it's all elementary and middle school kids. And my guess is that's probably a big part of what kind of got that going, was they're like, hey, we got to figure out a way to get some kids in here, get some interest from our feeder schools. And I guess that's the other thing too, is that it becomes a service that you can provide to those Lutheran elementary schools that are in our community. But it's not exclusive to them. So somewhere back in the mists of time, back, in my early career, I'm sure I had a principal come up and ask me about it, because I've been doing these as long as I can remember. And, it was just a matter of like, we want to run a week-long camp for elementary school kids. What are you interested in doing? What do you think would be a good fit for that kind of thing? And so that was kind of the genesis of it. I'm, K-12 certified. I've taught middle school and elementary school, summer school classes for some local public school districts. So, I got some experience working with younger kids. And so that was kind of the start of it, was just me trying to figure out, okay, what can you do to keep, some 5th graders occupied and interested for 3 hours, over the course of a week. And so we went from there.
Well, that's really interesting. So how do you keep them all occupied? Do you do a different project every day? Is there a theme for the week? Tell me how you approach that.
Okay. So the way my camps are set up now, I run 3 weeks of them. I've got 2 weeks of ceramics camp, where it's all working with clay. There's a younger kids, it's like 3rd through 5th grade camp, and then an older kids, 6th through 7th grade camp, just because you can do some very different things with, those 2 different age groups of kids. And then I run a 3rd week that we call All About Art, that is just drawing and painting and collage and some sculpture and just a bunch of different stuff. And that one I'll usually get kids anywhere from third or fourth grade up through eighth grade. And how do you keep them organized and interested? Each day is kind of set up a little bit different. So we'll take the ceramics camp. We'll start with that. Ahead of time, I try to throw a whole bunch of little bowls and get those fired and ready to go. Because ceramics especially is kind of tricky to fit into a week, because if you know anything about working with clay, you make the bowl, then it's got to sit out and dry, and then you got to fire it in the kiln, and that takes a little while, and it's got to cool off, and then you got to glaze it, and then you got to fire it again. So any art teacher that's listening to this, thinking about like them doing a ceramic unit in their class, they're like, what do you mean you're going start to finish? Like something you made to a finished, fired, glazed piece in a week's kind of crazy. So I try to have some stuff pre-made so that way those kids, one of the things we do on day one is they glaze those bowls so that those can get fired up, throughout the week. And then we make ice cream sundaes and eat them out of the bowls that they got to glaze on the last day of camp. It's kind of a fun little way to bookend what we do. But it also is just a way to get them doing something, right away. And then for those camps, I will have projects planned for each day. And usually they will relate around a certain skill. Like one day we're doing pinch pots and things you can do with that. One day we're working with coil pots and things you can make with that. One day we're doing things with slabs that we roll out and things you do there. My camps are in June, and in St. Louis, it tends to get pretty warm in June already. So it's fortunate because I can take the stuff that they made, and as long as it's not raining, I can set it out in the sun and help kind of expedite that drying process. And so we build for the first 2.5, 3 days of camp. And then the second couple days are more like finishing things up and decorating stuff. I also, that Thursday of camp, try to work in a project or two with some air dry clay so that they kind of get to do some of the sculpting and similar sorts of things, but it doesn't have to get fired. It just dries out in the air. They can paint it with acrylic paint and take it home. And so that kind of gives them a thing to do at the end of the week that's maybe not dependent on getting fired. It's not as time consuming. The other thing that I do is I let the parents know up front, like, hey, your kids are going to make a bunch of stuff and they're going to bring some of it home this week. And then the rest you're going to have to come pick up next week because that's just the nature of the beast. That's how long it takes to get fired. So that's kind of how that works, right? It's a whole lot of construction and then some decoration, and we try to keep it quick and fun. I know what sort of things tend to dry out faster or work better than others. And there's also free time built in there, right? So, you talk about trying to keep kids' attention, especially elementary school kids, they don't want to show up during their summer break and have you give them a detailed syllabus with all of the specific learning objectives you've got for their projects. So, what I tell the kids at the beginning of each day is, here's the 2 things we're going to do, right? This should take us about 2 of the 3 hours we've got. If you want to do it, awesome. I'll help you get it going, show you how to make things work. If you don't, we've got some free time. You can make what you want. And they love that, right? It gives them a chance to just kind of have fun with the material. And elementary school kids especially love making food out of clay. So by the end of the week, I will fire, dozens and dozens of pieces of pizza and hot dogs and cupcakes. And as long as they're not eating it, I'm all right with that.
Art camp sounds like a lot of fun. I think I'm probably too old to enroll for next summer's art camp. I would imagine you're probably not taking 35-year-olds in art camp.
Come on out, man. You're always welcome to audit.
It sounds like so much fun. And how did you settle on kind of where you're at now? Did this come out of your head fully formed, or was this something that you kind of tweaked over the years to get it to where it is now?
Oh, it's definitely, things that have been refined and working out the bugs. Kids love trying to throw bowls and cups on a potter's wheel. And so I've got 4 of them, in my classroom, and I have people sign up for, each day so that they can get a chance to, everybody gets a chance to try it out. right? Well, again, if you've ever thrown clay on a potter's wheel, you know the fundamental skill in that, and one of the things that's kind of time consuming is just getting the lump centered up so that you can turn it into something else. And that takes a lot of time. So if I've got, if I'm 20 kids deep trying to get them working on these wheels, just me having to center a new lump of clay up for each kid every time they do something takes a lot of time. And I did that for a long time before I finally realized, like, hey, man, there's got to be a better way. And so I got a bunch of these plastic bats, which are just a plastic plate that sits on top of the wheel head, that you throw the clay on, and then the plate pops off, and I put a new plate on, and it's ready to go. So I will center up. I've got 20 of those things. I will get 20 lumps of clay centered in the afternoon after I'm done with camp, and put them in a plastic bag. And that way they're ready to go for the next day. So as soon as we get the next line of kids the day after that, it's just bam, bam, bam. We set them out, we get them going. And that has greatly expedited the process and gets a lot more kids a chance to try that out. The air dry clay thing, that's something that I have not done forever. That was something that I kind of came around to because, it would be Thursday and kids would want to make stuff. And I'm trying to explain to them, like, dude, you're done tomorrow. Like, this is not going to dry out in time for you to do anything with it. But if we work with a material that does dry out in time for them to do something with it, now it's kind of a happy medium. So no, there have been many, many rough edges that were kind of worked off of this thing over the course of the years.
Well, I guess that's nice to hear because I'm listening to it and I'm going, man, this man is an art genius. I could never do something like this. So it's nice to hear that even the greats had to tweak it every once in a while. Now, I want to talk about one more thing before
Sure.
we wrap up here. When we were talking before I hit record, you are actually at school right now and there's art club today, you'd said.
Yes.
And we had talked a little bit about how art club has kind of been running itself. The kids have been running it, and we talked a little bit about leadership skills and things like that. Can we hit on that real quick just before we
Oh,
go?
100%. So one of the coolest things about having run these summer camps as many years as we have now is it becomes a very interesting way to get to know these kids through the years as they grow up, right? So the kids that are in my art club right now, there's a bunch of them that came through my art camp as like middle school and elementary school kids. And then they got to high school and art club becomes a way for them to keep doing that kind of thing. But they're also some of the same kids that come back and help out every year as like student counselors. So they're getting a chance, you talk about leadership skills in the summer camp. They're kind of my foot soldiers that kind of help me, ride herd on all these little kids and do stuff. So to see them get to flip the script a little bit, right? And go from being the student end of things to being sort of the instructor teacher end of things, working with little kids. That is great for them to see them, one, have to like teach those skills, but also to, I guess you learn so much from teaching, right? It's an old cliche, but like, to see them kind of learn about the process. And so then they get to art club, and I coach football. So I'm at practice after school from August through October. And so they kind of meet on their own. And I think it makes total sense that the kids who wind up running my art club are a lot of times the kids who are also camp counselors in the summertime helping me with art camp, because they show up with some experience of working with kids, and kind of, you've got 20 different kids at camp and they all have 20 different things that you want to do. And how do you kind of bring some consensus to that? How do you problem solve when this idea that you just thought was going to be perfect flops? Last year, I remember specifically one of my art club presidents came up to me, and she had this whole figure drawing lesson that she had worked out and wanted to do with the kids, and had kind of talked through it with me. And I was like, yeah, that looks cool. And the next day she came back, she goes, I had all this stuff ready to go and nobody wanted to do it. And I was like, welcome to my world, man. But that's, to see them grow up and learn how to manage those things. That's fantastic. If they've never get better at drawing and they learn those kind of skills, we were successful, right? I mean, that's so yeah, it's very student run. I tell them I'm a facilitator. I'm not looking for another class to prep. So you guys tell me kind of what you want to do. I will make sure we have the materials as best we can. I'll hang out and help you do stuff. But, this is largely you. And that is, it not only does it fit my schedule just because of the nature of me coaching and stuff, but also, that really kind of fits my philosophy of education, right? I think I tell the parents on back to school night, I said, if your kid walks out of here at the end of the semester and they still need me to look over their shoulder and tell them, okay, now do this, I said, I didn't really do my job, right? My goal is for them to get out of here and have some skills that they can kind of go on and do their thing. And I think our camps and our art club very much kind of dovetail with that and kind of how we do things in class.
I have so many things I like in that. I really, really like that, Mike.
I'm glad that somebody else agrees with me.
Hey, I will tell everyone there how excited I am about it if you need a cheerleader. You let me know.
Fantastic.
Can I include your email so if somebody's listening and they say, hey, I have art-related questions or I want to figure out how this summer camp runs, can they email you? Perfect.
Yeah.
And then I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. I'm going to pray for you and then we'll wrap up. Okay?
Fantastic, man. I appreciate it.
Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for Mike and for Lutheran South. Thank you for the students and the families there. Thank you for the gift of creativity and art and for the way we are able to use that to point people to you. Please bless Mike as he continues his ministry and bless all the students there at Lutheran South. In your son's name we pray. Amen.